All right, welcome in everyone to this deep dive. We're taking a closer look at Rich Dad, Poor Dad today.
A classic.
It really is, and I think, it's one that people either love or hate,
Right.
right?
Yeah, very polarizing.
But it's definitely it's thought-provoking.
Absolutely. And I think there's something in there for everyone.
Yeah. And you being familiar with the book already is great because today, like, we're not going to do a book report. We're
Yeah.
really going to like dissect the ideas and see how they could actually apply. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Kiyosaki starts off, right, with this story. It's super interesting about this 1923 meeting of like all these like top businessmen in America.
Hmm.
And he's saying 25 years later, a lot of them were dead, bankrupt, or like had mental health issues.
Hmm.
It's like this reminder that just having money
Right.
doesn't solve everything.
That doesn't solve your problems.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that he comes back to again and again. And I think that's one of the big ideas that people take away is that it's not just about money. It's about financial intelligence and it's about understanding how to manage your money.
Right. It's like this whole like misconception. I feel like we're taught that, oh, if you're rich, you're happy.
Exactly.
And like everything's great. And clearly
Not true.
not true.
No.
So, and to really get into this, like the heart of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to understand Kiyosaki's like upbringing because he had these two very different father figures. His own biological dad,
Right.
who he calls the poor dad,
Yeah.
and then his friend's dad, the rich dad. And it's so interesting how those two like shaped his view of money.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way to frame it, right? Because his poor dad, he was very educated, like got his PhD,
Government job.
government job, like the things that we're told are the path to success.
Yeah, exactly.
But struggled financially.
Yeah.
And then you have the rich dad who, dropped out of school.
Yeah.
But was this incredible entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like this idea that maybe what we're told isn't always
The whole picture.
the whole picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting too how they had such different views. Like poor dad would say like the love of money is the root of all evil.
Mhm.
And rich dad would say like the lack of money is the root of all evil.
Mm-hmm. So two very different ways of framing that idea, right?
Yeah.
Like, is money the problem or is the lack of money the problem?
Right. And to me that kind of speaks to like a whole mindset thing, right? Like poor dad was almost like afraid of money.
Mhm.
Like there was a bad thing.
Right, it's going to corrupt you.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
then rich dad was like, no. Like if you don't have money,
You're going to have to
you can't do the things you want to do, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, like if you can't afford your rent or you can't afford to feed your family, like that's
Going to cause issues.
Yeah.
Right. And that kind of leads into this like really fundamental concept that
Yeah.
Kiyosaki talks about, which is this difference between assets and liabilities.
Mhm.
I remember when I first read that, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, he makes it so simple, right?
So simple.
Like an asset puts money in your pocket, a liability takes money out of your pocket.
Yeah, it's like, duh.
Right, yeah.
But it's so true, and we don't
think about it that way.
know.
Yeah.
And like, for example, right, he talks about how a house
How?
that most people think is their biggest asset
Right.
is actually
Liability?
a liability.
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
because it's taking money out of your pocket.
Every month.
Every month, yeah.
The mortgage, the taxes, the
Repair.
repairs. Oh my God.
Yeah. Right. So it's not just about like what you own. It's about what that thing is doing to your cash flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, is it helping you
Is it helping you or hurting you?
or is it hurting you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where he, like, I think really, like, challenges people to think differently,
Well,
right?
Absolutely.
Because we're so used to, like, oh, I bought this. This is mine.
Yeah. I own this, therefore it's an asset.
Yeah.
But, he's really pushing you to think, okay, but is it making you money?
Exactly.
Yeah. And he talks about this idea of the rat race, right?
Rat race. Oh, yeah.
And this cycle that a lot of us get stuck in.
Work more.
Work more, spend more.
Taxes go up.
Yeah, it's like you're on this wheel and you're running and running
And you're not getting anywhere.
and you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah. I think he makes the point that, our education system often prepares us
For the rat race.
for the rat race, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're taught to be good employees,
Yes.
but we're not necessarily taught to be financially intelligent.
To manage our money, yeah.
Yeah.
And he has that great story too about that young couple who like buys their dream house
Mhm.
and then they're like, house poor.
Right, exactly. They're stuck.
They're stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this all kind of ties into this idea that he talks about of minding your own business,
Right, right.
which isn't necessarily like starting a company, right?
No, no. I think that's one of the kind of common misconceptions about this book
Yeah, exactly.
is that it's all about being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
but it's really about, like you said, focusing on building that asset column.
Yeah.
Right.
And he has that funny anecdote where he's like asking people, "What's your business?" And they're like, "Well, I'm a teacher."
Right. Or I'm a doctor.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer. Like,
Yeah.
no. Like, what are you doing to
To build wealth.
build wealth?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a question that we all need to ask ourselves more, right?
Absolutely. Like, what am I doing to build my asset column?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like this big, huge thing.
No.
Right. Like it can be small steps.
Right. It can be, investing in rental property. It can be investing in the stock market. It can be, starting a side hustle.
Okay.
There's all sorts of things that you can do.
So I feel like in this first part, we've laid a good foundation, right? We've talked about these contrasting mindsets.
Yeah, I think so.
Assets versus liabilities, the rat race, minding your own business, and like it's almost like we're getting ready to like build a whole
frame
a whole new way of thinking about money.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to dive into the strategies and the more like tangible stuff in the next part.
Me too. Yeah. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So now let's get into like the actual strategies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, we get it. We need to think differently about money, but how do we actually like build wealth?
Right. Well, I think one of the key things that Kiyosaki emphasizes is the importance of financial knowledge, like really understanding how money works.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a big believer in accounting, in investing, in understanding market dynamics, even the legal landscape.
Oh, yeah. The legal stuff is huge.
It's huge, right?
Especially with taxes and all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he learned this from his rich dad, right? His rich dad was the one who taught him that money isn't just something you earn and spend. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool to create more wealth.
It's like learning a new language almost, like the language of money.
Exactly.
And once you understand that language, then you can start to really like play the game.
Yeah. And I think one of the stories that really illustrates this is the story about Kiyosaki and his friend Mike.
Well, yeah, when they were kids.
When they were kids, right?
Making the fake coins.
Counterfeit coins.
Yes.
Right.
And of course they learned that, counterfeiting is illegal.
Right. Not a good idea.
Not a good idea, but the lesson there was like the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, that willingness to experiment, to try things, to see what works.
Yeah, to take risks.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's something that Kiyosaki like really emphasizes throughout the book.
Absolutely.
Is this idea of like don't be afraid to take risks.
Yeah, calculated risks, right?
Calculated risks.
He's not saying just go out there and gamble.
No.
He's saying like, do your homework, understand what you're getting into, but don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Cuz it's like if you always play it safe, you're never going to
get ahead.
You're never going to reach your full potential,
Exactly.
And this is where I think that financial knowledge really comes in because like if you understand accounting, you can analyze like financial statements and make better investment decisions. If you understand how the markets work, you can like spot opportunities and be ahead of the curve.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even understanding, basic legal structures can help you protect your assets.
Oh yeah,
Minimize your taxes, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like having a toolkit, right?
Yeah.
And the more tools you have in your toolkit, the better equipped you are to navigate the financial world.
Totally. Yeah. And speaking of tools, Kiyosaki's a big fan of real estate.
Oh, huge, yeah.
Like he talks about it a lot in the book.
He does, yeah.
And he gives like really practical advice about like finding deals, financing properties, managing rentals. And I love how he addresses that like common objection that people have, like, oh, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to fix toilets.
Right.
And he's like, well, you don't have to.
You can hire people to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Build a team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really important because sometimes we get so caught up in like the day-to-day stuff that we forget to think bigger picture,
Absolutely.
And real estate, it's not like a get-rich-quick scheme.
No.
It's a long-term.
It's a long-term game.
Yeah.
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 But he's very passionate about it, and I think he makes a compelling case for why it's worth considering.
Yeah. But he also says, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Like
diversify.
Diversify, yeah.
Right.
Stocks, bonds, businesses, commodities, even international markets.
Yeah.
And I think, that's really important because it's about, not just having a lot of money, but having options.
Yeah.
Right. Having that security that if one market goes down, you're not,
You're not wiped out.
You're not completely wiped out. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where we get to like one of the more controversial parts of the book, which is his views on taxes.
Taxes, yeah.
Like he's not just complaining about taxes.
Yeah.
He's saying like, understand the tax code, use it to your advantage.
Legally.
Yeah. Right.
He's not advocating for tax evasion. He's advocating for tax optimization.
Right. And I think that's a really important distinction.
It is, yeah.
Because a lot of people, like when they hear that, they're like, oh, he's telling people to cheat on their taxes.
Right.
But that's not what he's saying.
No, he's saying like the wealthy, they understand the rules of the game.
Yeah.
And they use those rules to their advantage.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not about like breaking the law. It's about like understanding the law and using it
to your benefit.
To your benefit, yeah.
Yeah. And then another thing that he talks about too is raising capital.
Raising capital, yeah.
Like he tells all these stories about how he's acquired assets, especially real estate, without using his own money.
Right.
Through creative financing and partnerships.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's so empowering.
It is.
Because it's like, okay, you don't have to be like a millionaire to start investing.
Right. If you have a good idea, you know how to raise money.
Yeah.
You can make things happen.
Exactly. And he challenges us to like think bigger.
Think bigger. Yeah.
Like don't limit yourself.
Right. And don't let the lack of money be an excuse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this leads into, I think, one of the most practical pieces of advice in the book, which is making offers.
Making offers, yeah.
He's like, most people are so afraid to make offers.
They are, yeah.
They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of failure.
They don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, no. You got to make offers.
Make lots of offers.
Yeah.
He tells that story about offering like half the asking price on like 6 different apartment buildings.
I know. It's crazy. His real estate agent was like, what are you doing?
No.
But his point is like, you never know.
You never know what somebody might accept.
Yeah.
Right.
And even if they reject your offer,
it can open up a negotiation.
Exactly. So it's like, again, the shift in mindset.
Absolutely.
From like passive to active.
Yeah.
Like take control.
Take control, yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask for what you want.
Exactly.
So I feel like we've covered a lot of ground in the second part.
Yeah.
We've talked about financial knowledge, calculated risk-taking, diversification, taxes, raising capital, making offers.
It's a lot, but it's all connected.
It's all connected, yeah. And it's all part of like building that financial intelligence muscle that Kiyosaki talks about.
Yeah. And there's still more.
Oh, yeah.
We're not done yet.
There's more to come.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about like the mindset shifts and the strategies, but now I kind of want to dive into like the inner game.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
psychology.
The psychology of it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can have all the knowledge in the world.
Right.
But if you're like battling fear and self-doubt, you're not going to get anywhere.
It's like you can have the best car in the world.
Yeah.
But if you don't know how to drive,
you're not going to win the race.
You're not going to win the race. Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And Kiyosaki talks about this. He identifies 5 main obstacles that can hold people back.
Okay.
Fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance.
Oh, those are good ones.
Yeah.
I think we've all experienced at least one of those.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've definitely struggled with fear.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to making big financial decisions.
Especially like investing. You're like, oh, what if I lose all my money?
What if I make the wrong choice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Kiyosaki says like fear is often rooted in lack of knowledge. So the more you learn about money,
the less scary it becomes.
Yeah. But he also acknowledges that like fear can be paralyzing.
Yeah.
Even if you do know what you're doing.
Even if you're financially savvy.
Yeah.
Sometimes fear just takes over.
He tells that story about
Richard.
He missed out on that real estate deal.
Yeah, because he listened to a cynical neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And cynicism is another one.
Yeah, cynicism's a big one.
It's so easy to like dismiss new ideas and opportunities,
Yeah, it's easier to say that'll never work
Yeah.
than it is to actually, like, try it.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like we're protecting ourselves, right?
It's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it can also hold us back.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. And then there's laziness.
Laziness. So yeah.
Which, Kiyosaki defines as not just like physical laziness, but mental laziness.
Yeah.
Like a reluctance to learn, to grow, to push yourself.
Like to do the work.
Yeah, to do the work.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get complacent, right?
Especially if you're like, comfortable.
Yeah, if you're making ends meet.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm good.
Yeah, I don't need to like rock the boat.
Right.
Yeah.
But Kiyosaki would say, no. Like you got to keep learning, you got to keep growing.
Keep pushing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then bad habits, right?
Well, bad habits.
We all have them.
We all have them.
Like spending too much money.
Procrastinating.
Making impulsive decisions.
Oh, yeah, the impulse buys.
The impulse buys, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And those things, they might seem small individually, but over time...
They add up.
Yeah. And then finally, there's arrogance. Which, Kiyosaki considers the most dangerous.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's that belief that you know everything.
I got this.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't need to learn anything else.
I'm already rich.
Right.
And that can be really dangerous because it blinds you to risks, to opportunities.
Yeah, you're not open to new ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do we overcome all these things?
Well, I think, Kiyosaki emphasizes the importance of continuous learning, right? Like not just in the traditional sense of like going to school, but actively seeking out knowledge, challenging your assumptions, surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
And being willing to invest in yourself, not just financially, but in terms of time and effort.
Yeah, like read books, go to seminars.
Exactly.
Listen to podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all part of that like growth mindset.
Yeah, that growth mindset. Exactly.
And he talks about finding mentors too.
Mentors, yeah, finding people who have already achieved what you want to achieve.
Yeah, and learning from them.
Yeah, and Kiyosaki himself, he credits his rich dad with being his mentor.
Right.
And giving him that guidance and pushing him.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, everyone can do.
Absolutely.
Right.
There's formal mentorship programs, there's networking events, but you can also just like reach out to people you admire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ask for advice.
And be like, "Hey, can I pick your brain?"
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, it's about taking action. Like all this knowledge is useless
if you don't do anything with it.
If you just sit there and do nothing.
Exactly. So it's about, taking what you've learned, applying it, taking those risks,
making those offers,
and not being afraid to fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because failure is just part of the process.
It's a learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Kiyosaki's main message, like if we had to boil it all down, is that financial intelligence is not about how much money you make. Right. It's about what you do with it.
It's about your mindset.
Yeah.
It's about your habits.
It's about, the actions you take.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's something that anyone can learn.
Yeah.
It's not something you're born with.
It's a skill.
Yeah.
You can develop.
Absolutely.
Well, I feel like we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
I think so.
We've gone through like the key concepts, the strategies, even some like controversial viewpoints.
Yeah. I think we've given people a lot to think about.
Yeah, and hopefully some actionable steps.
Yeah, absolutely.
That they can take,
to improve their financial lives.
Exactly. Yeah. So I hope our listeners found this valuable.
Me too. And
if you want to learn more, definitely check out the book.
Yeah, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's a classic for a reason.
It's a must read, I think.
Absolutely.
And as a final thought, like I'm just curious, if you could spend an hour with either Rich Dad or Poor Dad, who would you choose and what would you ask them?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been fun.
It's been great.
Yeah.